Among the many constructions that Latin has that English has but tries to avoid, or really we don't do at all, are impersonal verbs. That is, verbs whose subject is an unnamed it. I suppose in some ways in English, it happens. Uh, what happens? It happens that something might be an equivalent to an impersonal verb in Latin, but really it's more complicated than that in Latin. So what these are going to be are third person singular verbs whose subject really is it, although the subject can kind of be an infinitive, a particular action. But what these all express is that things happen outside of the actors. So the stress is placed on the action of the verb itself and not necessarily on the doer of the verb. So there are three types of impersonal verbs. The easiest type are the verbs that are only used impersonally. That is, they're only in third person singular, and their active voice. Decet and apportet, it is proper, it is fitting. Licet, it is allowed. Pinatet, it causes regret. Piget, it shames, it disgusts. And necessa es is necessary. This isn't complete. There are a few other ones that you'll run into, but these will give you some idea of how they work. Now, for some examples, so most of these will take some kind of infinitive to express what is proper to do, or what is allowed to do, or what disgusts you, or what is necessary. So, in the example here, te decet gratias agere, it is proper, decet. There's the main verb. It is proper that you, or for you, there's the accusative, it's proper for you to give thanks. So here is what is proper to do. It's proper for you to give thanks. We might say something like you ought to, but Latin here, the stress is on the properness of it. Or non licet domi currere. It is not permitted, licet. What's not permitted? Domi currere, to run in the house. So here the infinitive is what is not permitted. And then piget, it disgusts, it vexes. We'll take the accusative of the person vexed. Right? So it vexes me, and then a genitive of the thing that causes disgust or vexation. So your fear disgusts me. But really the sentence is saying, it disgusts me of your fear. And then here an example from Catullus. He's talking about a woman's love, and he says, or what she says, what a lover says, and he says, invento et rapida scribere apportet aqua. So it is fitting, it is proper to write what she says. It is proper to write in the wind and in the rapid waters. So all of these verbs you'll never find in, one can't say I disgust or I am necessary or something like that, or I need to. These are going to be third person singulars, and they can be various tenses as well. Then there are transitive verbs which are used impersonally, and this is a very odd way of that Latin deals with these. And again, the stress is going to be on the action. So remember, transitive verbs take direct objects, and we're going to place them in the passive, but with, again, that subject it. So these are going to be passive, third singular, and the subject will be it, and the stress will be on the action. So Caesar says, pugnatum est acriter. It was fought sharply, ferociously. Pugnatum est, here being passive, third singular. So it was fought. Really he's saying they fought, and he actually says, he uses a ablative of agent, it was fought on both sides fiercely, but the stress here is on the fighting. It was fought fiercely. And Cicero says, ad Clodium ventum est. So from venio, to come, it came to Clodius. What is this it? The opportunity to speak. Ventem est is impersonal, it has that subject it, it's passive. It came to Clodius. Ovid in the Metamorphoses says about the age of iron, itum est in viscera terrae. And itum, here's your impersonal, coming from eo, to go. And that certainly it's almost nonsensical to say that it has a passive, but it was gone by them into the belly of the earth. So really what this is saying, so literally, it was gone equals they went. And one more example from Seneca, bibamus, let us drink. And then here, moriendum est, here's our impersonal third person singular. It, and this is a passive paraphrastic. From morior, to die. Again, hard to consider this having any kind of passive sense to it, but let us drink, it must be died. The stress here is on the death, but this really says we must die. So let us drink, for we must die. So we have transitive verbs used impersonally. And then finally, we have intransitive verbs, which are used passively. Now, intransitive verbs, by definition, cannot generally have a passive voice, because intransitive verbs don't have an accusative object. But if you remember those intransitive verbs that take a dative object, like command or obey, impero or pareo, the dative object, we can sort of conceive of those types of verbs as passives. However, because they're intransitive, they have to be used impersonally. So we're going to take these verbs, put them in the passive, third singular, and then keep the dative object as a dative. So this is easier with an example. Nocetur feminis amalis. So nocetur from noceo, remember noceo takes a dative object. I harm a dative. Here it's it is harmed. And then feminis, here's our dative object. Because noceo takes a dative object, it was harmed to the women by the bad men. Now we would say the women are harmed by the bad men, but Latin can't do that because nocetur is intransitive, so it needs to use this impersonally. It is harmed to the women by the bad men. The women are harmed by the bad men. Another example, credo. Remember, credo takes a dative object. Crede mihi, trust me. And here, creditur, it is trusted to me by all. So we have our ablative agent, just like we had here, amalis. But instead of saying I was trusted, we have to say it was trusted to me. In English, we wouldn't say this. We would say I am trusted by all. Latin says it is trusted to me by all. And finally, pareo, to obey. We can't say that the commander was obeyed, but we can say paritum est imperatori. It was obeyed to the commander. Here's our dative object. We need to keep this in the impersonal passive form. So it was obeyed to the commander. The commander was obeyed.